Welcome to this collaborative worship of the Baja Four Unitarian Universalist congregations found in Southeast Arizona, with 2 in Tucson, 1 in Amado, and a 4th in Sierra Vista. This week, we collaborate also with UU Justice Arizona, UU Jazz, and use portions of a queer faith service they put together. You are welcome to be here from wherever and whenever and whoever you are as you join us. But this is June, and while we believe the LGBTQIA+ community should be honored and valued and supported every day of the year, we take pride in taking part in pride and lifting up the diverse experience of this community. Today, please join us as we look at parts of a service that UU Jazz put together, not just to be spoken by LGBTQ people and about LGBTQ people, but directly to them, honoring them directly. And so, in this way, we hope to center this experience. Whether you're allies or part of the community, you, all of you, are welcome here with us today.
We acknowledge our interdependence with the land and through it, all of its people. Our Unitarian Universalism further guides us to justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships and calls us to respond to entrenched and ongoing systems of injustice that impact so many and influence our own hearts. We acknowledge the Cherokee Apache, Pascua Yaqui, Otham, and Opata peoples today as the indigenous ancestors to those who have endured generations of genocide, land theft, and displacement under the justification of colonization. We recognize, too, there is an ongoing impact of systematized colonization. And despite it, these people continue their traditional life ways and even craft a vibrant future together. But our own aspirations of justice, equity, and compassion, they can't be fulfilled for anyone, ourselves or others, if they're not fulfilled for us all. And so we acknowledge our interdependence and then the sacred work we must take up to craft by our actions a collective liberation. For justice, equity, and compassion are hollow until filled by our efforts to reweave the broken web of which we are all a part. Let these thoughts carry us into action as we journey forward. Blessed be.
Whenever, from wherever, you join us, and with whatever you have at hand, be it a chalice or a candle or a lighter, will you please light it right now with me as we listen to these words written by Reverend Angela Herrera and read for us by Reverend Casey Slack.
"110" by Angela Herrera, adapted. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision. Bring them with you. And your joy and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing and your power to heal. There is work to do, and you have all that you need to do it right here in this room.
Some days I look in the mirror and I think the meanest things are the meanest things. Some days I'm holding my self-worth up by a string. But every day that I don't hide myself away, to me is a tiny victory. Some days it feels like a wrecking ball swinging through my rib cage, Some nights I'm just a million broken pieces singing on a stage. I'm a little more broken open, but a little more free, and that's a tiny victory. And if battles can win a war, I can keep picking my sword up off the floor and learn to treasure these tiny victories. Tiny victories. Some days giving up on myself looks so easy to do. It's so easy to do. Oh, the struggle is slow, I'm barely moving the needle, and the I can keep picking my sword up off the floor and learn to treasure these tiny victories, tiny victories, tiny victories, tiny victories. Every day that I don't hide myself away, every day that I don't hide myself away, to me is a tiny victory.
Frederick Emerson Small is a fascinating man. Trained as a lawyer at Yale and the University of Michigan, he put out some really great albums as a singer-songwriter, mostly in the 80s. Then he went back to school at Harvard Divinity and was ordained as a UU minister, serving a couple of churches in Massachusetts before resigning as a parish minister to turn his attentions to climate advocacy. He's now Minister for Climate Justice at Arlington Street Church in Boston and Director of Faith Outreach for Climate Exchange, a group that advocates for carbon pricing legislation in Massachusetts. I'd be very surprised if some of you don't know him. We're talking today, though, about his middle career as a singer-songwriter. He put out 7 albums on such prestigious labels as Rounder and Flying Fish, and is highly regarded by people like Pete Seeger, no less, as one of America's best songwriters. Recording with some of the finest musicians New England has to offer, his albums are very highly thought of. His last album was in 2001, and he continues to perform occasionally, but he never lets it get in the way of what he considers his real work, the fight for a healthier climate. Like any good UU songwriter, almost all of his songs have an underlying message. In 1983, he put out an album called The Heart of the Appaloosa that featured a song called Everything Possible. In 1983, Small had heard the distress of a friend. Her 9-year-old son came home from school crying because his friends no longer hugged each other to show that they liked each other. Now, the method was to slug one another. She wanted a song that she and her wife could sing to him to show that he had the freedom to live and love as he chose, and could reject the toxic masculinity his friends were learning. This lovely and gentle lullaby was the result. It's a good song, and it attracted a lot of people, but it didn't really catch fire until a 5-man gay a cappella group called the Flirtations took it up. They were active from 1988 until 1994, and achieved a pretty high level of success, even appearing as themselves in the Tom Hanks film Philadelphia. Ultimately, though, the group had to disband when AIDS claimed the life of a few of its members, including singer and songwriter Michael Callan. From the Flirtations, it made the jump to the world of gay and lesbian choruses, or gala choruses, because it spoke so directly to so many queer people of all description. When I asked my gala chorus friends to recall when they first heard it, many replied that it had brought them to tears. In a lot of ways, it's the lullaby we all wish had been sung to us as kids, and many of us take great pleasure in singing it to the children in our lives now, whether it's our own kids, nieces and nephews, or just anyone who needs a gentle lullaby. For all that, though, it's not a perfect song by any means. While the song talks about changing gender roles, it doesn't go beyond the dichotomy of men and women. Fred himself has written, "I've thought about revising the lyrics to eliminate the gender binary. It's not an easy fix. For now, my hope is that you can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you, affirms an infinite range of sexual affectational orientation and gender presentation and identity." Its popularity in gala choruses also means that it's been sung many, 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 many times by singers of all skill levels. And as a result, some of us got more than a little tired of it. Also, the original Flirtations arrangement by John Arterton is gorgeous when they sing it, but it gets super pompous and more than a little overblown when sung by a 60-plus voice men's chorus. I wrote this arrangement as a form of self-defense against the many huge and overwrought arrangements that were available to me when I was directing Desert Voices. It's a lullaby. It needs to be simple and direct. This is not the time to bring out the huge operatic voices and super thick, heavy scoring. So this one is just for soloists and a simple chorus part with them, and was originally sung with just a simple folk guitar behind it. The UUCT Desert Chorale sings it now, with Bob, Celeste, Cher, and Brian as our soloists. Fred Smalls, Everything Possible.
We have cleared off the table, leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I have told you a story and tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day.
As the moon sets its sail to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, well, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody that you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're gone.
Some girls grow up strong and bold.
Some boys are quiet and kind.
Some race on ahead, some follow behind.
Some grow in their own space and time.
Some women love women.
Some men love men, some raise children, and some never do. You can dream all the day, never reach the end of everything possible for you.
Don't be rattled by names, by taunts or games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they will give the same back to you.
You can be anybody that you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by
We need all of who you are. Dear ones, we need your anger and your tears and your love and your passion. We need your creativity and your mess. We need each and every theoretically conflicting part of your identity. Your love of the divine, your love of each other, your burning rage against all systems of oppression. We need the part of you that loves your cat. And we need the part of you that can't get out of bed. We need the part of you especially that doesn't feel like it makes sense. As queer people, as trans people, we hear over and over again that something about who we are just doesn't make sense. We get told that we could be respected if we could just make ourselves make sense. And then we get stuck. We get stuck in this place where we are over and over and over again trying to explain that we matter, that it's okay to love who we love, to be who we are, to be how we are. Like if making sense ever got anybody free. Like if all of the best written works on what it means to be bisexual, what it means to be non-binary, what it means to be transgender, what it means to be gay or lesbian or asexual, what it means. There's a way in which white cis heteropatriarchy is obsessed with things making sense, with logic, and it's not that logic is bad, but obsessed with logic to a point where it overtakes all things, and where it is not considering that its own internal logic has gaps on purpose. You're not required to make sense. You're not required to be anybody's cookie cutter version of anything. And not only are you not required to do those things, we actually need the whole range of complicated, maybe confusing things that you are. I'm not saying that none of us should ever put on a cloak of legibility in order to move through the world. I don't know about you, but I certainly have a way of talking about my identities in public with straight people and cisgender people and people who are just not used to the existence of people like me. I'll say a shorter version of what's true. I'll say, actually, something that I intend to obfuscate the true complexity of everything that I am. I usually in public just say that I'm queer. I don't want to get into the details. I don't actually think that I or you owe anyone the details of who you are. But with us, in a room with our queer family, with our trans family, with the rainbow of people who fit in between. Well, you deserve time and space to be all of the complicated things that you really are. Let me tell you a story. When I was doing my clinical pastoral education residency as a chaplain in a hospital, I was the only queer person in my cohort. There were 6 of us. Most of us were Christians. Everybody but me was cisgender and straight. And I got tired really fast of trying to explain who I am. At the time, I was newly out as non-binary, and during that period, I started using they, them pronouns all the time. I was and still am someone who reads as a woman in public, though I'm not. I was also someone who, though verbally queer, was at the time mostly in relationships with men. And, well, the fact of there being more than one of them was enough to make that confusing for some of the other members of my cohort. Eventually, I stopped explaining. I said, listen, you can call me my name, you can use these pronouns, and the rest of it is my business. I went to work in various forms of professional drag. When I started, I wore a wig so that my blue hair wouldn't be so obvious. I peeled off layers as I got more and more used to these people and they to me, but there was always this stark contrast between who I was in the office and who I was on the weekend going to queer day parties in glittery dresses and being seen a little more as my whole self. And then there were the days where I would be in the hospital, in work drag, playing a more respectable, less complicated version of myself, and the person in front of me would need more of me, would need to know a little bit more. And I started thinking about what happens when we are so in the practice of hiding who we are, of pushing ourselves into little boxes that make sense to the dominant culture. We need to be able to see each other as complicated, difficult, full people. We need to be able to see each other at least sometimes as all of the things we are. You deserve to see that a minister can be a person who is bisexual and non-binary and figuring out what on earth it means to live somewhere in between femme and masc, or to do masc in a really femme way. I'm genuinely still not sure. You deserve to know that you can be depressed and struggling and still making a difference. That each piece of you is an important piece of the whole of the universe, right? We weren't made to be little carbon copies of each other, and even though that is what the world at large would love us to be, right? We see this all the time with the attempt to make non-binary into just a neat third gender category. So I want to invite you, I want to challenge you, I want to support you in being complicated, bringing the whole truth of who you are. each piece that maybe doesn't make sense yet. If not to one another, then to whatever it is that you call holy. When I started seminary, I'm from a small town in Ohio, and, well, when I left for seminary, one of the last things I was told was that I wasn't going to be able to be like that and a minister. Now, the person who said that was not a Unitarian Universalist, and what they knew, but I went to seminary with this real sense that I was going to need to figure out how to be something a little more ordinary. How to be what people expect of a minister. And then I walked in the doors at Star King, and one of the first people that I saw was Ibrahim Farajaje, who was then the provost at Star King. He was tall and bearded, and his beard was red because he had just been on Hajj, and he had tattoos and gauged ears, and when he prayed, he used every pronoun I had ever heard at the time to talk about God. He opened up this door for me that said, you can be complicated. And then in one of my first classes in seminary, and I have to tell you, I really think that this was the universe or God or whatever speaking into my life so that eventually I could speak into yours. In one of my first courses, Reverend Dr. Dorsey Blake, who's the minister at the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples in San Francisco, said, God is the thing that can handle all of your contradictions. God is the thing that can handle all of your contradictions. The divine is the thing that wants the most complicated, most authentic version of yourself. And beloveds, if you can't today, tomorrow, next week, next year, bring your full self to community, that's okay. People are scary. But I want you to do yourself a favor and bring your whole self to the divine. Let yourself rest in the knowledge that you are the expert on your experience, and you and the universe get you as much as you are gettable. Notice that in nature, the favorite thing is, wow, look what I did, right? Nature is full of impossible things. And you, too, are allowed to be a beautiful and holy, impossible thing. We need all of who you are. You deserve to be all of who you are. And to be seen and loved in that. And babies, I know this world is bad at that. So bring it to the divine creativity, to love beyond love. Know that God is the thing that can handle all of your contradictions. The divine is a place where you don't have to make sense. I love you in all of your complicated, detailed beauty. I love you when you don't make any sense to you or anyone else. I love you when you are beyond sense, when you are beyond logic, when you know things in a way that cannot and does not need to be explained. Amen.
My hands are strong enough, they're strong enough, and I'm good enough. My hands are strong enough to give love. I know that my arms are long enough, they're long enough, and I'm good enough. My arms are long enough to give love. I know that my heart is wide enough, it's wide enough, I'm good good enough. My heart is wide enough to get love. My light is bright enough. I'm good enough. My light is bright enough to get love. And my heart is wide enough to get love. I know that my arms are long enough to give love. My hands are strong enough to give love.
God is queer, as in, From and Fleshed by Reverend M. Barclay. God is queer, as in, strange, surprising, titillating, non-conforming to norms that destroy. As in, breaking open new possibilities through flesh entangled, and brave acts of collective courage. As in, troubling certainties, resisting assimilation, and persisting through struggle together. As in interdependence, chosen family, and reaching out to isolated kin. As in always becoming. As in less this or that, and more multi-layered, multidimensional, and complex. As in intimately experienced and beyond definition. As in the love between strangers and sheets, the love that lasts for lifetimes, the love that begets love. As in resists white supremacy and all its deadening lies, rigid definitions, and desire to control and confine. As in loyal to love, lovers, beloveds, even when it's all on the line. As in hurtful when spit from the mouth of hate, but sometimes still also a lighthouse, a history of holy uprising and the coming home from within.
Thank you, Sky, for your powerful reading of those words by Reverend M. Barclay. The Reverend Tyler Connolly recently wrote about the many kinds of love, often deep, sometimes surprising, that have sprung up in his life as a gay man. And he entitles the piece, Gratitude, Like Pride, an Antidote to Shame. I thank him for reminding me that gratitude is a powerful tonic against all that would demean or destroy. And so I want to share, celebrate, dance my thanks for all of you who made this service possible. Thank you, Reverend KC, for reminding us that the divine can take all of who we are and that the universe needs all of our pieces, even our contradictions and mess. Thank you, Sky, for what you just read by Reverend M. Barclay. God is queer as in, reminding us that the holy may also be full of contradictions, rich complexity, and mess as well. Thank you, musicians, for songs that examine the parts we have struggled and sometimes succeeded in loving. Thank you most of all, UU Justice Arizona, for parts of your queer faith service that you shared with us today. Please look in our show notes for ways you can learn more about the work UU Jazz is doing to counter the oppressions faced by LGBTQIA+ people. You can count on UU Jazz to pivot quickly when action is needed. Thank you all who revealed and continue to reveal yourselves to us and to allies. And may we all, as members of the community or allies to it, continue to show up with our complexity, our confusions, ready to listen, grow, stretch in love, to keep seeing, hearing, learning more, always open to learn more. As we go forth, that we blow out this flame, may the wisdom, care, pride, and celebration we encountered here glow and strengthen all our many fragments. May we know ourselves to be beloved, sacred, belonging to all we hold holy and divine.